Time traveling. There are many iterations of it as there are stories to tell. And this is not only on anime, but also on the mainstream media. You have the typical change the past, affect the future in Back to the Future. And the more somber, the timeline already took into account time traveling in 12 Monkeys. But even in anime, there are also variations. Charlotte did a similar thing to Back to the Future, but adding X-Men to the mix. The Tatami Galaxy did a rewind to a start point in which the protagonist took different paths. Steins Gate did something with a microwave and a banana to time travel. And of course, ReZero depended on our protagonist to die to restart in a set point in time. All of these stories are unique in its own way, and honestly, you can like each one for different reasons and call them the best time traveling anime using different arguments. Except maybe Steins Gate, because I fell asleep watching the first episode. And I want to give a disclaimer that this title is just a clickbait. Don't come at me saying that this or that time traveling anime is better. I just wanted to talk about an anime that I recently finished and I enjoyed for the most part. So what is this anime I'm talking about? Well, if you're familiar with Disney Plus Jail, then maybe you won't have heard of this anime, since as usual, they wait until the anime is completed before releasing it to the public. But if you are from Southeast Asia or Australia, or if you use an illegal website, then you may have heard of this anime called Summertime Render. Before we move on, I want to give a fair warning that I will be talking about the major plots and twists of the story as well as its ending, so take that in consideration. And with that said, let's move on with the video. The story follows our main protagonist Shinpei, as he comes back to his hometown, the island of Hitogashima, to attend to the funeral of his childhood friend Ushio, who mysteriously drowned after saving a young girl. During his time on the island, he learns about a mysterious rumor surrounding shadows that transform into people and take their place. He starts his search for the mystery of these shadows and the possible assassination of Ushio by looking around the island only to find one simple truth. Trust no one. Not even yourself. As he is killed by one of the shadows, he wakes up a few days prior just as he was arriving to the island. And as things play out the same way, he realizes he can go back in time after he dies. So now the story is set, a murder mystery with supernatural monsters that take the form of people, and our only savior is a kid with time traveling abilities. I have to say that at the beginning I wasn't sold on the idea. I have seen so many animes come out with a cool concept but fail at the landing, so I was cautious when watching it. Don't get too invested, you have been hurt so many times before. And then, it happened. The second death. He wakes up and he's not in the ferry but in the port. A few minutes difference, but this changes everything. Oh god, no. Are they really going to change the time traveling point to whatever is convenient for the protagonist? Why not just keep it in the same place? Just go back every single time to the ferry. But I was completely in the wrong. Third death. Now he's on his way back home. Oh my god, you crazy bastards, you did it. It is not just a random back in time. Every time he dies, he gets closer and closer to the dead point. That's genius. As in any fantasy story, my main point for considering an anime good are the rules. A power needs to be bound by rules that make it easy to understand and give constraints that stop the protagonist from just doing whatever he wants and gives a sense of urgency that there is a possibility that things may go wrong and stops the belief that no matter what happens, the protagonist is bound to win at the end. And this is especially true for deaths. At the beginning, it didn't matter if somebody dies because he just needs to restart the timeline. But after a few deaths, you realize that if they are to die too early, they may not go back after the reset. I have to say that out of all the time traveling tropes that I have seen, I think this is one of the best ones. Knowing that there is a limit on how many times you can go back gives a whole different meaning to the time travel. As the story progresses, we discover a plot regarding the shadows that want to replace all humans in the island, which basically means making a copy of them and then killing them. But later on, we discover a more sinister plot, involving a huge four-armed shadow called Shide and the goddess of the island Hiruko-sama. Shinpei also finds new allies in the mystery writer Nagumo-sensei, who has the ability to look 3 seconds in the future, as well as the shadow of Ushio, who maintains her original memory and aids Shinpei in fighting against the shadows. The story has everything. Mystery with the story regarding the shadows. Action whenever Ushio and Nagumo are fighting the shadows. Betrayal between different inhabitants of the island, and even a bit of romance. But I personally have to say that when the story really shines, it's in the mystery. Finding new truths about the shadows, the mysteries in the island, and the secrets hidden in plain sight were what was really keeping me on the edge of my seat. And while they were some nice action moments, I wouldn't say that they were outstanding, especially compared to other animes that aired on the same season. The only problem was that by the middle point of the story, almost all mysteries were solved. We knew who were the villains, how the abilities worked, what was their plan. Even the villains understood Shinpei's power and were trying to cheese him. Everything was set, so with mysteries out of the window, the only thing left was the drama. And the possibility that some of the characters won't be able to come back if they were to die. But unfortunately, I felt like they fell off a bit short in comparison to how good the story was during the first half. Even after the last plot twist, things didn't exactly felt right, and even the final standoff between Shide and Shinpei felt more like a typical shonen rather than a well-thought mystery. But at the end, it still felt like a fulfilling conclusion. Episode 24 finishes with Shinpei going back in time to when Hiroko first arrives to the island and erases her before she can do any damages. Ushio and Shinpei say their goodbyes, and Shinpei wakes up in a ferry. Perfect open ending, where we can't be sure what happened to the shadows or what was really happening to the island after those changes were made. It wasn't a perfect story, but it was a great ride. What is that? There is an episode 25? Oh god, why? After the perfect ending for the story, we get an epilogue, where Shinpei kind of forgets everything that happened in the story and meets everyone in the island and learns what happened to them now that the shadows never existed. Ending with Shinpei and Ushio watching some fireworks, implying that both remember everything because fuck the rules. I knew that they had bended the rules a bit through the story, especially with Shida's shadow, but for the most part, everything had been consistent. But just randomly remembering the past, especially for Ushio, who was supposed to be dead through the story, it was the last straw for me. Honestly, the last episode doesn't bring anything new or interesting to the story. If you want a better ending, just finish on episode 24 and forget they ever made an epilogue. Just draw your own conclusions. Overall, the story has some great points. I think the mystery side was great. The first 15 episodes of the story are packed with something new and interesting that keep you on the edge. The opening songs are bangers. I personally love the rock music of the first opening. The last part of the story has a bit of a downfall, but it's still consistent to the story, and it felt like the typical shonen. And the ending is great if you forget about the epilogue. If you're looking for a new and different time-traveling anime, Summertime Render is the story for you. And with that said, we come to the conclusion of this anime review. What do you guys thought of Summertime Render? Let me know in the comments below. Until then, see you guys next time.